I was a millionaire lost in translation, until the cleaning lady changed everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My life, once filled with luxury and glamour, crumbled around me like brittle parchment, and it all began with that innocent knock on my door that I was in my penthouse, high above the suffocating city, surrounded by treasures that felt more like chains. The air was thick with expectation, as if my fortune skated on a tightrope over a chasm of despair. I heard the knock, a soft but urgent sound that echoed through the sprawling silence of my cold, empty home. The kind of silence that could suffocate you, if you let it. It was just a cleaning lady. She looked like she had stepped out of a storybook, with her wild curls framing worry lines etched deep into her skin. Her eyes sparkled, catching the light like shattered glass, and I felt something shift inside me, a flicker of recognition. Was it hope? Or the piercing ache of something I had buried long ago? "Sorry to intrude," she said, her voice barely breaking the silence. "I have to get this floor cleaned." It was a small request, as mundane as the feathers drifting down from a pillow, but I felt my heart quicken. I waved her in, my hands trembling. She noticed the mess. The untouched facades of wealth that surrounded it was more than dust and grime. It was neglect, abandonment, a metaphor for my own soul trapped in this gilded cage. I watched as she knelt on the floor, scrubbing vigorously, her determination a stark contrast to my own apathy. There was power in her movements, like she was wrestling with the shadows that clung to the corners of my life. "Why do you do this?" I asked, my voice catching in my throat. She paused, glancing up, her eyes locked with mine, as if peeling back my layers one by one. "To make us feel better," she replied softly. "Even in the dark corners, there's a chance to bring light." Those words hit me like a fist. Who was I kidding? I wore my wealth like armor, but beneath it lay the remnants of a person who had lost touch with everything that mattered: the laughter of friends, the warmth of family. Instead, I was entrapped in phone calls and meetings that felt like chains tightening around my throat. That day, the cleaning lady didn't just scrub my floors, she started to wipe away the grime on my heart, revealing a reflection I had long avoided. But then, everything twisted. The news exploded into my Minda phone call I received later that evening. I could hardly breathe as I took the call. "Your investments are failing." The voice on the other end was cold, sterile. My world shook. Millions are gone. My pulse raced. My perfectly cultivated life, crumbling like a sandcastle against the tide of reality. The cleaning lady, my unexpected anchor amidst the storm, had already disappeared, leaving me to face the wreckage alone. The shadows of my choices danced around me, and I could hardly understand what was happening. All I knew was I was standing on the edge of an abyss, holding a shattered mirror reflecting everything I feared. What was I to do now? Where was the path forward when my entire life felt like a cosmic joke? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The world outside my window blurred into a canvas of gray, reflecting the tumult within me. The phone slipped from my grip and clattered onto the polished floor, its shrill notification echoing against the silence. The message from my investment manager blared like a siren in my ears, but I was no longer certain if I was listening. My whole life, my identity, hung precariously in the balance. I sank down onto the couch, surrounded by the glittering emptiness of my penthouse. The once welcoming space felt like a tomb now. I ran my fingers over the velvet fabric, its softness a stark juxtaposition to the harsh reality of my dwindling empire. Moments stretched uneasily as I contemplated the specter of loneliness that had clung to me for so long, even amid the ostentatious luxury. There was a knock at the door again, crisp and clear like a bell tolling in the stillness. My heart raced. Could it be her? The cleaning lady? I leapt up, and without a second thought, I swung the door open. It wasn't her. Instead, it was Maria, my next-door neighbor, a sweet elderly woman with kind eyes that seemed to sparkle even in the absence of light. She held a plate piled high with warm cookies, their fragrance wrapping around me like a comforting hug. "I made extra," she said, her voice gentle. "Thought you might like some." For a brief moment, the weight of my troubles lifted, and a flicker of warmth ignited in my chest. "Thank you, Maria." I took the offering, feeling the warmth seep into my palms, and for the first time in days, I smiled a weak, wavering smile, but a smile nonetheless. She stepped inside, her soft cotton dress sweeping over the gleaming floor my cleaning lady had scrubbed earlier that day. "You've been so quiet lately. Is everything all right, dear?" Her eyes were searching, sincere. This just happened." The words tumbled out, raw and unfiltered. I couldn't hold back the torrent. I told her about my investments, my fear, and the crumbling fortune that felt like a weight suffocating me slowly. As I spoke, the truth felt freeing, a release from the chokehold of my own despair. "Sometimes, it's in the falling that we find the strength to rise," Maria said softly, her hands clasped tighter around her plate. "I lost everything once, too. My husband, my home, but you see, each time I felt myself hit the ground, I found kindness from others. Your heart, dear, is what truly matters. Treasures can be regained." Her words lingered in the air, a balm to the raw wound that was my spirit. Each cookie she had made was an act of kindness, a reflection of a world that sometimes felt adorned in shadows, but could still shine brightly with the light of compassion. As I took a bite, memories of laughter filled the spaces in my mind where silence had ruled. My childhood evenings spent sharing dessert with family, the sweet camaraderie that suffused the air, flooded back. Here, sitting with Maria, I felt less alone, untethered from the weight of my misfortunes, if only for a moment, but peace was fleeting. A flurry of notifications broke through the comforting stillness, a jumble of messages from investors and frantic calls. The fear surged back in, black clouds thickening around the small light I had just started to allow into my heart. Then, my phone lit up with an unknown number. Hesitation gripped me, but a voice in my head urged me on. What if it was someone who could help? I swiped to answer, my breath held as I greeted the caller. "This is Jaden.Mr. Sanders." The voice was authoritative and sharp. "It's about your holdings. There's something urgent you should be aware of." A chill raced down my spine at the gravity in the tone. "What is it?" I asked, but in my heart, I feared the worst. "A rumor is swirling that your major investor is prepared to pull out. If they do, the ripple effect will be catastrophic." My heart sank as I processed the implications. I was no longer just watching the foundations of my life quake. I was standing at the edge of a precipice, ready to plunge. I glanced at Maria, still seated, her innocent offering of cookies cradled in her open hands. The comforting weight of familiarity collided with the dread spiraling within me. "How quickly can you move?" The voice continued, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me that I don't know. I stammered, uncertainty spilling into every word. "Consider this a warning, Mr. Sanders. You have little time. I suggest you act, or you may lose everything." The call ended abruptly, and the air felt electric, suffocating. Staring into space, I realized I wasn't just fighting to save my fortune. I was battling against my own fears, insecurities, and the remnants of a life that had turned into a crude joke. Mariah's reassuring presence felt like a beacon amid the chaotic storm brewing inside me. Yet I couldn't shake the gnawing fear that I was slipping away from everything I had ever known. The weight of impossible choices hung heavily. How could I navigate this? My gaze returned to Maria, her eyes filled with concern, but now was not the time for confidences or cookies. I needed direction, a lifebuoy in this tumultuous sea of uncertainty. As her hand rested gently on my arm, grounding me in that moment. The door to insight creaked open just a little. But would I be brave enough to walk through it? And like that, the knot returned in my stomach as the undeniable truth clutched at my mind, a truth I wasn't ready to face. A betrayal coursing through the air, surrounding me like an impending storm. Was that cleaning lady truly just a cleaning lady? Or had she been the unexpected catalyst I never knew I needed before everything else began to unravel? A delicate silence hung in the air, wrapping around us like a fog, closing off the outside world as I tried to piece together the fragments of my new reality. The weight of Mariah's hand on my arm was a tether, yet a swell of panic threatened to knock it free. "Is everything all right, Jaden?" Her voice was a whispered reassurance, but I could sense her worry deepening like a crack in porcelain. "You're pale." "Maria," I faltered, uncertainty gnawing at my resolve. I could feel her kindness emanating like light. Yet, the shadows that loomed over my life felt too dark, too suffocating for her gentle warmth to pierce. What could a woman of her years know of the tempest I faced? "Every moment matters," I said, pulling my arm away from her grasp, anxiety thrumming within me like a trapped bird. "I need to think. There's so much at stake." She nodded, a wise understanding breaking through her worry. "Thinking is good, dear. But don't forget, sometimes the best solutions come from looking outward. You aren't alone, no matter how heavy your burden feels." Gripping my phone, my breath still caught in my throat, I stared into space. Could kindness truly thwart the chaos closing in around me? I had geared my life to shoulder everything on my own. Yet here was a woman who embodied the very connection I had neglected. "Let me help," Maria continued, a quiet determination in her voice. "You know, I still have my contacts, people I trust. Maybe they can guide you. You don't have to do this alone." I shook my head, the skepticism creeping back in. "What do you know about investments?" "About?" I hesitated, each word feeling like a heavy weight to speak aloud. "About losing everything?" With a soft smile, she held my gaze, her own stories of lost dancing just beyond the surface of her eyes. "More than you realize, Jaden. Life has a way of humbling us in unexpected ways, reminding us that in the depths of despair, we often find who we really are." Tears prickled at the corners of my eyes. In that moment, I didn't just see her, the cleaning lady, the neighbor, but a reflection of resilience amid my spiraling despair. Each wrinkle on her face whispered of battles fought and survived. And for the briefest instant, I saw the flicker of hope through the storm clouds. Maria reached for her coat, hanging near the door. "Let's go out." She opened the door wide, revealing a crisp afternoon. "Sometimes, a change of scenery is all we need. Trust me. ITLL, clear your mind." Reluctantly, I followed her, the threshold an uneven step into a world I had begun to see through a narrow lens. The air outside smelled of rain and earth, grounding me, somehow more real and less daunting than the disarray of my penthouse. We wandered side by side in a comfortable silence until we reached a café nestled into a corner of the street. As we entered, the ambient chatter buzzed around us, the rich aroma of coffee filling the air. Maria ordered 2 steaming cups, and I watched as she moved through the space like she belonged, her presence a bridge to a lesser-seen world. When the cups arrived, we settled into a corner table, and I glanced around, anxiety mingling with unfamiliarity, hoping to find clarity amid my racing thoughts. But instead, chaos spiraled in my mind. What if I had already lost everything? How could I let someone else in again? Maria sipped her coffee, her delicate hands cupped around the warm mug, and her gaze rested on me. "Tell me, what do you fear the most?" she asked, the warmth of her question wrapping around my heart like an embrace. That I hesitated, the admitted truth clawing its way up from somewhere deep within me. "Losing everything," I finally admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I built my life on this empire, and now I don't know who I am without it." "You are more than the sum of your possessions, dear," she replied, a knowing look gracing her features. "Sometimes, it's about reclaiming your identity through the love and compassion you extend to others." Her words began to dismantle the trembling fortress I had built around my heart. But no sooner had I begun to feel a glimmer of hope than a shadow loomed overhead. The cafe door swung open, and a familiar figure marched inside. My heart stopped as I recognized the tall silhouette of man I detested, my chief rival in business, Lucas. The very man I feared would seize my downfall as his opportunity. His eyes scanned the room, and for an agonizing moment, they locked onto mine. He approached our table, a smug grin dissecting his sharp features. "Well, if it isn't the mighty Jaden Sanders, reduced to coffee with the cleaning lady," he quipped, casting Maria a look of disdain. The sting of his words landed hard, ripping through the fragile hope Maria had nurtured in me. But as I met Mariah's calm gaze, a newfound determination filled my chest. "Careful, Lucas. Sometimes, people may surprise you," I replied, surprising even myself with the firmness in my voice, however wavering it was. Lucas smirked, the glimmer of mischief in his eyes. Just be sure you keep an eye on your back. Opportunities like yours don't last forever. With that, he left, the door swinging shut behind him like a gavel coming down. I felt the panic rise again, grabbing hold of my throat. But Mariah's hand gently squeezed mine, grounding me further. Remember, you are not defined by your net worth, she whispered softly, nudging me back towards clarity just as the chaos threatened to consume me. As the cafe bustled around us, I realized I stood at the crossroads. I could either let fear and insecurity snuff out this flicker of hope, or I could embrace the strength I felt rushing through me. Yet, the shadow of Lucas loomed large in my thoughts, taunting my insecurity. How far had darkness seeped into my life, and how much more could I withstand? Would this newfound sense of camaraderie be enough to defeat the impending doom? As the remnants of Lucas' laughter echoed in my mind, I understood. The path ahead would require courage, facing deeper fears than I could have imagined. I abruptly realized that distractions would no longer suffice. It was time to confront all that had remained unsaid and undone. In that cafe, something shifted deep within me, a realization that my battle was far from over. But just as I was beginning to believe I held the reins, the dark cloud hovered once more, threatening to rob me of all the unexpected warmth Maria had brought into my life. Tomorrow, the true fight against uncertainty would await. And, unbeknownst to me, a shocking revelation loomed just beyond the horizon, a twist of fate that might unravel everything I thought I knew. The morning sunlight seeped through the cracks of my apartment, illuminating the scattered remnants of my once impeccable life. Chaos mirrored my thoughts, each room a reflection of my internal struggle. How had I allowed everything to unravel so quickly? Looking in the mirror, I hardly recognized the hollow figure staring back at Meth Man, burdened by shadows he couldn't name. Just yesterday, I had felt a hint of hope, sparked by Mariah's unwavering support. But as dawn broke, the weight of Lucas's words clung to me, a relentless echo that pierced through the thin veil of optimism I had pulled over my heart. I rummaged through my scattered files and documents, trying to somehow restore order. The reality of my failing investments hit me like a brick wall. The cold, hard numbers staring back felt like a judgment of my worth, as though each dollar was tied to my identity. I opened my laptop, scrolling through spreadsheets overflowing with red ink. The figures blurred, morphing into a chaotic dance of despair. My phone buzzed, shaking me from my reverie. A message from Maria brightened the screen. "Good morning. Remember, today is a new day. Want to grab coffee again?" Her words provided a momentary reprieve amidst the storm, a reminder that the warmth I felt around her was not a mirage, it was real, and it was tangible. I hesitated for a moment, wrestling with the urge to hide away, but the thought of solitude felt increasingly suffocating. "Sure, I'll meet you in an hour," I replied, the decision pulling me back toward the light. When I arrived at the cafe, I was greeted by the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee, but I still stumbled through the door like a ghost in search of solace. Maria stood by a table, her presence radiating warmth, as if she were a lighthouse guiding weary ships to shore. "Jaden," she greeted, her smile brightening my spirits. As we sat across from each other, I took a moment to observe her, so full of resilience, yet marred by experiences she rarely shared. Forcing a smile, I focused on the now. "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday. Maria tilted her head, a flicker of curiosity lighting her eyes. "I've always measured my worth through success, through money, and losing it all feels like losing myself," I admitted, the realization uncoiling from my chest and spilling into the air. "Money is only a tool, Jaden," she said gently. "It doesn't define you. You define what it means to be you, regardless of your bank balance." "There's a big part of me that doesn't know how to be just Jaden anymore," I confessed, fidgeting with the edge of the tablecloth. "What if I can't figure it out? What if I'm just lost?" A shadow crossed her face, a testament to her deeper understanding. "Lost can lead to finding something richer, something more valuable. Sometimes, we have to strip away the surface to discover who we are at our core." Her words resonated deeply, yet uncertainty loomed like a thundercloud just beyond our shared moment. As we talked, however, I could feel the smallest tendrils of hope intertwining with my drowning fears. Yet suddenly, from behind me, I heard a familiar voice that twisted my stomach into knots. "Well, This is interesting. Lucas' mocking tone reverberated across the cafe. I turned to see him at the counter, holding a cup of coffee, his eyes glinting with satisfaction. He approached our table casually, a smirk painted across his face. I didn't know your new best friend was the cleaning lady. What a perfect match. Two people missing the point in this city. Mariah's grip on her mug tightened, but she held her composure, giving me a reassuring nod. I could feel the tension rising within me, ready to erupt. What do you want? I asked, my tone sharper than I intended, but there was no turning back now. Oh, nothing, Lucas said, feigning indifference. Just thought I'd drop by to witness the fall of the great Jaden Sanders, reduced to this. He gestured dismissively, taking in our surroundings. You really are grasping at straws, aren't you? A wave of fury washed over me, but it wasn't just anger. I felt the sting of doubt, prickling at the edges of my resolve. Could Lucas really see through the tiny flicker of resilience I was desperately trying to shield from the world? But then something remarkable happened. Maria stood up, her presence unwavering, as she met Lucas's gaze unflinchingly. You think you have power over him, don't you? But strength is not measured by wealth. It's in the courage to rebuild when the world tries to tear you down. Lucas sneered, but Mariah's words undid something in me. I had lived in fear for too long, allowing his presence to dictate the shape of my actions and emotions. But I felt a tiniest whisper of defiance rising within me, fueled by Mariah's conviction. Get out, Lucas. Your opinion doesn't hold weight here. I found myself saying, surprising even myself with the conviction in my voice. Is that so? He retorted, his expression darkening. You'll regret those words. Watch your back, Jaden. No one escapes me unscathed. He spun on his heel and strode away, but he left behind a charged atmosphere fraught with tension that lingered like smoke in the air. I slumped back into my seat, adrenaline surging through my veins. What did I just do? I muttered, disbelief mingled with an unexpected surge of empowerment. Maria smiled, her pride evident. You stood your ground. That's a start. You are worth fighting for. No matter how daunting the battle may seem. The cafe buzzed around us, but in that moment, it was just the two of us, two souls linked by an unshakable bond of understanding. Yet, beneath the pulse of newfound resolve lay a question that wormed its way back into my heart. Could I truly stand up to the shadows chasing me? The going would not be easy, that much was clear. The fight was just beginning, and as the afternoon sun dimmed, I knew deep down that the greatest test was yet to come, a revelation that would shake the very foundation of everything I believed. What if Lucas had a secret, one that ran deeper than rivalry? It would soon become the catalyst for a confrontation I could never have anticipated, one that threatened to unravel everything. The shadows lengthened as I sat in the cafe, its comforting ambience starting to dim along with my resolve. Maria's words echoed in my mind. Yet the specter of Lucas loomed large, his venomous threats gnawing at the edges of my newfound courage. What could he mean? I thought, anxiety threading through my gut like a tightening noose. As our conversation shifted back to lighter topics, laughter spilled from our table. But underneath it all, I couldn't shake the weight of Lucas's words. There was a frosty detachment in the room despite the warmth of the sun slicing through glass. I glanced at Maria, her eyes bright with kindness, but even her gentle smile couldn't thaw the chill creeping in. After a long pause, I sighed, looking down at the coffee that had grown cold in my hands. What would it take for me to really begin again? I asked, the vulnerability in my voice unwinding something deep within. Sometimes, starting over doesn't have to mean doing everything from scratch. It can just be a shift in perspective, Maria suggested, her tone tender yet firm. It's about rediscovering what you truly value. For me, it was about finding beauty in the mundane, in service, in helping others. It can be the smallest acts that shape our lives the most. The thought lingered, kindling a quiet warmth within me. What had I overlooked in my obsessive pursuit of wealth? What if the real treasures had always been right under my nose? Just then, the door swung open, sending a gust of chilly air into the cafe. A tall man in a tailored suit strode in, his presence commanding the attention of everyone in the room. The owner of the cafe, a loud, cheerful woman named Rita, came rushing over to him with a beaming smile. Mr. Johnson, what a surprise. We weren't expecting you today. Curiosity piqued. I listened as they exchanged pleasantries. Rita glanced at me, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Jaden, this is Oliver Johnson. He runs the biggest tech firm in the city. You should network with him. I felt an invisible weight descend again. Networking. More conditioned jargon I hadn't been able to stomach in months. Part of me wanted to sink deeper into my chair and disappear from the spotlight. But there was another part, the part Maria had ignited that hungered for connection. Gathering my strength, I stood up and approached them. Mr. Johnson, I said, extending my hand and forcing an earnest smile onto my lips. I'm Jaden Sanders. The prodigal millionaire. It's a pleasure. He shook my hand firmly, his grip betraying his confidence. Rita left us to converse, and I seized the moment, hoping to navigate the conversation towards something valuable. As we discussed the changing tides of the economy, part of me hoped he'd see my potential, my desire to rebound. However, Mr. Johnson's compliments felt thin and patronizing, and the hunger for validation seemed to widen the chasm inside me. Beneath his polished exterior, I could sense a predatory undertone. With every flattery, his eyes darted like a predator sizing me up, sending fresh jolts of anxiety creeping through my limbs. Let me tell you, Jaden, he leaned in closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. I've heard tales of your unfortunate downfall. A brilliant mind like yours should never go to waste. If you're looking for investors, perhaps we could discuss opportunities. My heart faltered. The prospect of entering into another potentially toxic relationship, one that might mirror my previous failures, hung dauntingly in the air. But with Lucas' words echoing in my mind like a storm warning, I couldn't ignore the nagging allure of redemption. I appreciate the offer, I stammered, clinging to my resolve, but the shimmering hope began to splinter. But I'm currently reevaluating what success truly means for me. His grin faltered slightly before returning, almost predatory. Reevaluating, huh? Just remember, Jaden, man's worth is often measured by his connections. Don't find yourself in a position like that cleaning lady over there always overlooked. I glanced back at Maria, who had been observing from the sidelines. With an unwavering softness in her gaze, my chest tightened at his words, fury coursing through me. In that moment, something snapped. You may see her as overlooked, but you couldn't be more wrong. She sees value where it truly counts. Mr. Johnson's smile faded, and I could practically feel Mariah's surprise mixed with pride. But before I could fully bask in the warmth of my small triumph, my phone buzzed again in my pocket, jolting me from the moment. I fumbled to pull it out, and my breath caught in my throat as I read the message. I have something important to tell you. Meet me at the park by your place tonight. Lucas, my heart sank further into a chasm of dread. The weight of his unsaid revelation loomed large over me, a darkness that threatened to consume the small spark of courage I had just ignited. I have to go, I said abruptly, adrenaline surging through my veins. Jaden, wait, Maria exclaimed, concern etched across her face as I dashed toward the exit. Promise me you'll be careful, she called after me, but the urgency took hold. The streets outside buzzed with life, but all I could hear was the echoing pulsation of dread echoing through my thoughts. As I reached the park, shadows danced under the muted streetlights, amplifying the foreboding atmosphere. Lucas was waiting for me near the fountain, his expression unreadable but wary. What do you want? I demanded, words spilling out jagged and raw, seeking any semblance of control. He stepped forward, tension crackling between us, his smile now absent. You're not as clever as you think, Jaden. There's something deeper at play here, something tied to your fall. My heart raced. The truth lay just beyond his lips, a revelation that could either shatter me or set me free. Let's talk, Lucas continued, and as he leaned closer, I could feel the weight of what he was about to reveal threatening to consume everything I thought I knew. The darkness stirred, ready to spill its secrets as a storm began to brew. The tension hung thick in the air, each word I didn't speak clashing with the rising storm inside me. Lucas stood just a few feet away, his eyes glinting with something unsaid, something heavy that threatened to crush the fragile hope Maria had kindled in me. What do you mean? I pressed, shaky resolve barely disguising the fear coursing through me. What could possibly be deeper than my failures? Your failures are just the surface, he said, his voice low, almost conspiratorial. There's a reason your ventures collapsed, Jaden. They didn't just go down. They were sabotaged. Sabotaged? The words slithered out, each syllable thick with disbelief. Was he trying to manipulate me into a frenzy of paranoia? By whom? Why? By someone who stands to gain from your downfall. Someone close. Lucas' eyes hardened, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of something genuine beneath the shadow of his usual bravado. There was a pause, one that stretched painfully as I tried to read his expression. You're still blind to it, aren't you? Every tick of the clock seemed to pulse painfully in the silence, time itself twisting and turning in anticipation, and I felt my heart begin to pound louder against my ribcage. You're lying, I insisted. If anyone was behind my fall, I should know. Did you ever consider what really happened? The data you were given? The people around you during your rise? He crossed his arms, his demeanor shifting from pounce to patient. The signs were there, Jaden. You just didn't want to see them. The night around me dripped with an unsettling calm, shadows lurking in the corners where the flickering streetlights failed to reach. I fought against the sinking feeling in my stomach. This was classic Lucas, mixing truth with deceit, and yet, the core of his words scratched at the walls I had built since the fall. That I can help you, he continued, lowering his voice as if we were conspirators in a twisted play. But you need to stay close. You can't just turn away because of a little discomfort. Discomfort? My voice rose in incredulity. How could he so easily dismiss the wreckage of my life? My entire world crumbled, and I'm offering you a lifeline. He interrupted, frustration lacing his tone. But you won't find what you're looking for by doing things the old way. You have to re-enter that world and reclaim what's yours. What's yours? My breath caught at the weight of the words. His insistence was like a noose tightening around my throat. Do you even hear how dangerous that sounds? Lucas rolled his eyes, impatience flickering across his features. Come on, Jaden. You're not that naive. Making it in this world has never been about being the good guy. It's about knowing who plays the game and playing it better. Better? I echoed, the sentiment echoing in my chest with a twinge of worry. By manipulating people? By betraying trust and stretching the truth. In a world steeped in deceit, it's the only logical way to survive. Trust is a luxury, not a commodity. You think the man you just met at the cafe has your best interests at heart? They don't care about you. They care about your value. His words settled ominously, each one dissecting every morsel of hope I had been clutching so desperately. A small voice reminded me of Mariah's encouragement, the warmth of her conviction pushing back against the icy waves of Lucas' logic. You're wrong, I spat, growing more resolute as the calm settled into defiance. There are people who care, who want to help you without strings attached. If you think I'm going to play your games, you're mistaken. Lucas' expression darkened, a storm brewing in his eyes. But before he could retort, a sudden rustle in the bushes nearby caught our attention. The tension shifted, and for a moment, we both turned toward the source of the sound. Just as quickly as the noise had materialized, a figure emerged, a scrappy-looking teenager, dressed in ragged clothes and clutching a worn backpack. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, the boy stammered, his wide eyes flitting between us. But you guys were talking about trust, right? I really need someone to trust. What's your name? I asked, my anger towards Lucas pushed aside momentarily by the genuine plea shining in the boy's eyes. Eli, he said, his hands trembling slightly. I saw that you looked. I don't know. I just figured you looked like you could understand. The unexpected interruption lifted an edge from my turmoil. The boy's vulnerability, a gentle reminder of the goodness that still existed. Maybe Lucas thought of trust only in transactional terms, but Eli was here because he was searching for connection desperately, just like I was. Why do you need trust? I questioned softly, instinctively leaning closer. I am alone. My parents, he hesitated, eyes glistening with unshed tears. I just want to prove to them I'm worth something, but it's hard. No one listens, and people around here forget about you if you slip up. Ella's innocence crushed against the jagged edges of my own experience. I saw fragments of my past reflected in his struggle, the desperation for connection, the yearning to be seen and accepted. In that moment, hope flickered within me, nudged forward by the child's fragility. Eli, you're worth more than you realize, I said gently, unaware that Lucas had retreated a few steps back, his expression a mask of annoyance. And you can also find a way to build your future. It's not the end, Lucas scoffed, his impatience leaking into the conversation. Don't waste your time, Jaden. Kids like him don't change their narrative. Eli looked between us. The tension returned like a flood, threatening to drown this fleeting moment of empathy. Lucas' words lacerated the warmth forming between Eli and me, attempting to cast out the flickering light of hope I had just reflected. My heart pounded as I felt outnumbered, so easily swayed by Lucas's cynicism. Maybe you're right, I said finally, eyes shifting back to Eli, studying his lost expression. But that doesn't mean we discard kindness. We have to choose how we see the world. Doesn't matter, Jaden, Lucas interjected sharply. Choose wisely, or you'll just end up like your cleaning lady friend, lost and overlooked. With that, Lucas turned abruptly and stalked off, the darkness consuming him as he blended back into the shadows of the park. As the echo of his footsteps faded, a haunting realization nestled in the back of my mind. Could I really trust that this moment wasn't just another reflection of my past? Are you okay? Eli asked, sensing the change in my demeanor as I stood there, still tinged with fear and uncertainty. I looked down at him, the weight of the moment overwhelming, and suddenly, I understood. In this world of lost connections and crumbling trust, this moment with Eli held the potential to sow seeds of light. But the cliff of despair loomed just beyond, threatening to pull me back into darkness, a haunting reminder that Lucas still knew secrets I had yet to uncover. Would I risk everything to maintain that light, or would the shadows reclaim me once more? As I searched Eli's earnest eyes, a chilling thought swept through me. Every decision from here would ripple far beyond the café and the warmth I had felt in Maria's presence. The darkness was gathering once more, but perhaps this time, I could fight it with the courage not just to survive, but to connect with Eli, with Maria, and maybe even with myself.
The silence left by Lucas's abrupt departure was heavy, yet the air between Eli and me began to shimmer with something unspoken. I knelt down to his level, and the vulnerability in his gaze mirrored the unease inside me. I can't promise you that everything will be okay right away, Eli, but you deserve someone who believes in you. Eli nodded slowly, as if weighing the gravity of my words against a world that had so often said the opposite. I took a deep breath, willing myself to step into the chasm of his faith. If only for a moment. What do you love to do? Is there a dream you hold on to despite everything? His eyes lit up, momentarily breaking to the veil of despair. I love art, he said softly, almost hesitantly. I want to be an artist someday. Too used to draw, but then people said I was wasting my time, that I should focus on getting a real job. Art is a real job, I replied firmly. It's a gift, and it takes courage to share it with the world. Have you ever thought of showing your work? Eli shifted nervously on his feet, contemplating my question, the vulnerability of his confession hanging in the air. I saw glimmers of that light I had been searching for deep within him. I have some sketches, but I don't think anyone would want to see them. Show me, I urged, a surge of hope guiding my voice. I promise I won't laugh or judge. I just want to see what you created. His hesitation lingered, but I watched as he finally reached into the tattered backpack slung across his shoulder. He pulled out a small, crumpled sketchbook, and just as he opened it, I heard familiar footsteps approaching a harsh contrast to the gentleness blossoming between Eli and me. Maria emerged from the dim lighting of the street, her expression shifting from concern to surprise when she spotted us. Jaden, what's going on here? Eli was just about to show me his art, I said, attempting to keep my tone steady, wanting to encapsulate the warmth of the moment rather than the heaviness that loomed. He's trying to find his way, much like I am. Mariah's eyes softened as she knelt beside me, peeking at the sketches Eli had revealed. Wow, these are incredible, she said, genuine admiration coloring her words. I see so much talent here. You have a gift, Eli. The sweet melancholy that tinged his features shifted, chased away by Mariah's unexpected kindness. For a moment, I could see him starting to glow with newfound possibility, the walls he built trembling against the warmth of acceptance. Don't know, he stammered, hope battling with the weight of the world pressing down on him. No one ever cared like this. Mariah's smile broadened as she picked up one of the pages, her fingers tracing the lines with reverence. If you like, I can help you display some of these. Maybe start with a small gallery spot at the community center where I work. I have connections that could give you a platform. Eli looked back and forth between us, the spark of hope kindling into a budding flame. You really think so? This burst of optimism fueled my own as if Maria had breathed life into broken pieces of my heart, intertwining them with Ellis dreams. But just as we began to carve out a path forward, a familiar specter of doubt curled around my heart. Why, Maria? Why would you want to help so selflessly? I asked, not out of suspicion, but out of genuine wonder. The light in her eyes seemed to flicker, her smile wavering ever so slightly. Because we all deserve somebody in our corner, Jaden, she replied, her voice steady and warm. I remember you when you believed in hope just as fiercely. And Eli deserves that. Before I could respond, a shrill phone rang, cutting through our moment like glass shattering. It was my phone, and the display blinked with a name I had hoped not to see for a long while, Nina, my ex-business partner. A cold chill enveloped me. I had avoided her carefully, not wanting to peel back any layers that still felt open and raw from the past. With hesitation, I answered, Nina, Jaden, I need to see you. It's urgent, she said, the sharp edge of her voice tinged with a hint of concern that I
hadn't anticipated. What do you mean? I thought we just trust me. It's about your past, and it's pivotal, she interrupted, and my chest tightened at her tone, an unsettling reminder of the chaos that once defined our partnership. Meet me at the old office. Tonight. I hung up, my heartbeat echoing like a drum in a quiet room. My thoughts raced, spinning wildly, because the last thing I wanted was to disentangle myself from the fledgling hope we had forged in this moment. But at the same time, Nina had failed me before. What could she possibly want now? Did it relate to the darkness Lucas had hinted at? Turning back to Eli and Maria, I felt like a fragile bridge balancing on the precipice between hope and despair. I have to go, I muttered, my voice heavy with reluctance. Meet Nina. Ellis' expression fell, the warmth of our burgeoning connection threatened by my necessity to dig into that dark past once more. But what about our plans? He whispered, the hurt obvious, and it pierced through the layers of my heart. He'll be back. I promise, I said, gripping his shoulder gently. Keep dreaming, Eli. Keep painting. They'll figure this out. As I turned to leave, the weight of my choices felt monumentally heavier than I had anticipated. I didn't know if Lucas' accusations were true, if I was indeed standing on the edge of uncovering the very sabotage I wished to forget. But deep inside, I felt the flicker of hope I had discovered with Eli and Maria. And as the shadows whispered uncertainties in my mind, I wondered whether that light was enough to guide me onto a path I could truly trust both in myself and in the hearts of those around me. Would I find the courage to face the ghosts of my past, or would they drown me in their darkness just when I had begun to see the dawn? The weight of the evening had settled deep in my bones as I made my way toward the old office. Each step resonated with echoes of doubt and fear, reminders of all the times I had tried to distance myself from my past. The feeling of being lost was familiar, but tonight, it felt different. Tonight, it rejuvenated the apprehension lodged in my chest and resurrected the vivid memories of betrayal and miscommunication that haunted me. The office, a relic of dreams gone awry, loomed before me as I climbed the creaking staircase, my heart racing. I hesitated at the entrance, the scent of stale coffee and outdated corporate decor mixing with the bitter taste of nostalgia. This place once held promise, and now it felt nothing short of a tomb for forgotten aspirations. I stepped inside, and there she was, Nina, leaned over a desk cluttered with old contracts and memories of better days. Her sharp features softened under the dim light. She looked up, her expression a mixture of expectancy and trepidation. Jaden, she said, her voice somehow both familiar and foreign. You came. Why did you need to see me? I asked abruptly, trying to mask the unease that simmered beneath my skin. That I am not here to rehash the past, she began, but I could tell her words were laced with hesitation. I want to talk about Lucas. The mention of his name sent a jolt through me. Lucas had been both a villain and a victim in our story, and unraveling that dynamic felt beyond my grasp. What about him? I pressed, though I could feel the instinct to retreat, to pull up the armor against old wounds. Bubbling to the surface that I overheard something, she continued, her eyes flickering with urgency. He's gotten involved with someone in a position to expose you, and it could ruin you if you don't act quickly. And my mind raced back to the gaping hole left by Lucas' departure. The words he had flung like daggers just before he walked out. "You ruined everything," he had said, and part of me still wondered if that was true. "So he's trying to bring me down?" I asked, the weight of those words feeling like an anchor pulling me deeper into uncertainty. Nina sighed, glancing out of the window, lost momentarily in her thoughts. "You need to understand, Jaden. I never wanted to betray you. We were a team once, and I'm coming to realize that I miss working with you. I think you have what it takes to rise above this after everything." I snapped, my heart pounding. "You expect me to trust you? We fell apart because of your choices. Maybe it doesn't have to be the same this time," she argued, her expression earnest. "If we operate from an understanding of past mistakes, we can prevent more damage." Before I had a chance to respond, a quiet knock interrupted us. I turned my gaze toward the door just as a figure slipped inside, an older woman dressed in faded jeans and a simple white tee. Despite the unassuming appearance, there was a quiet confidence in her posture. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, her voice gentle yet firm. "But I came to grab some of the old supplies left behind." Nina's demeanor shifted at once. "Oh, it's just Mrs. Martinez, our cleaning lady," she said, as if the name carried little weight. Yet, my intuition tingled as this woman's presence brought a sudden grounding. "Mrs. Martinez," I echoed, intrigued. "Do you come here often?" "Most nights," she answered, a warm smile spreading across her lips. "These walls have seen a lot, haven't they? Some stories are worth revisiting, and others, well, they need to change, don't they?" Hearing the thoughtfulness in her words settled a rare sense of calm within me. "Do you think it's possible to change the unfolding story of our lives?" I asked, barely aware of the vulnerability in my voice. Absolutely," she said with an unexpected fierceness that brightened the dimness of the old office. "Every moment is a brushstroke on the canvas of your life. Whether it's a mistake or a triumph, it all leads you somewhere. Just be mindful of the choices you make. They have more power than you know." With that, she turned to leave, but not before casting one last look at me. "And remember," she added, "sometimes the most profound changes come from the most ordinary people." I stood there, the weight of her words settling around me. Could it be that something so mundane could ignite transformation? Just then, I felt Nina's gaze harden, as if she was processing the shift in the atmosphere created by Mrs. Martinez. "Jaden," she started, forcing the tension to hang heavy between us. "This isn't just about Lucas. It's about your future. Leaving him unchecked could ruin everything you're trying to build now." I contemplated her warning. A tiny flicker of hope stirred within Meth's faintest pulse of connection past that dimly illuminated the path ahead. But as I glanced at Nina, I couldn't shake the feeling that there were layers of betrayal yet to be uncovered. "There's something you haven't told me," I said slowly, meeting her eyes. "Is there more going on with Lucas that you haven't revealed?" Nina's face paled, her previous resolve fading as a realization crept into her expression. Before she could respond, the phone in my pocket buzzed, a sharp reminder of the world outside this room. Digging it out, I saw a message that sparked a fresh wave of dread. "You need to come back now. Ella's in trouble." Maria, the ground beneath me felt unsteady as uncertainty flooded back in. "I have to go," I said, the urgency piercing through the tangled conversation. "Eli needs me." Nina's eyes widened. "Wait, we have to discuss this." But I was already retreating, propelled by the instinct to protect the one flicker of hope I had found, aware that the shadows were once again closing in. "Stay safe," I called, but as the door closed behind me, I couldn't shake the feeling that the storm was just beginning and that the choices I was about to make could either free me or drown me entirely. The air outside was suffocating, heavy with a silence that mirrored the chaos brewing in my chest. My feet moved with urgency toward the nearest subway station, but my mind was an erratic whirlwind of thoughts. Eli. The name reverberated in my head, a relentless chant. I hadn't seen Eli in weeks, and now a text claiming he was in trouble sent chilling shivers down my spine. Those last moments with Nina echoed relentlessly. ID allowed a fragile thread of hope to weave its way through my storm of anxiety, only to tug at my heart with an impending sense of doom. Whatever miscommunication lingered in her half-hearted apologies remained unaddressed. Trust was a thin bridge, and it felt as though it might splinter beneath us at any moment. As I stepped onto the subway platform, I could hardly focus on the people around me, a kaleidoscope of faces, each lost in their own narratives. I locked onto one, an old man clutching a canvas bag, staring intently at a newspaper. For a fleeting moment, I thought about the life he had lived, the stories behind his weathered eyes. It was a stark contrast to my own spiraling story, and I envied his apparent simplicity. While I waited for the train, images flickered across my mind. Ellis' laughter, the way his eyes sparked with mischief, and the dread of losing that spirit. If something was wrong, it was imperative that I reach him before it was too late. The idea of arriving too late struck raw terror into my heart. As the train pulled up, a series of thoughts collided. What if I failed him? What if I fought to uncover truths only to be met with more shadows? But then I remembered Mrs. Martinez and her insightful words. Perhaps even ordinary moments held extraordinary potential for change. The ride felt eerily brief, a mere fragment in time that cracked open reality. I glanced around to take stock of my surroundings, drawing strength from the faces that surrounded me. Every individual had their burdens, and yet here they were, navigating their journeys in silence. I wrestled with the real possibility that maybe I wasn't alone in this fight. Maybe I needed to be vulnerable, to rely on the strength of others. When the train screeched to a halt, I sprinted up the stairs and burst through the turnstile, my heart hammering in my chest. The streets buzzed with life, but every sound felt muffled compared to the dread coiling within me. Ellis' neighborhood was barely a few blocks away, but I took each step furtively, flinching at shadows that danced in the periphery of my vision. Arriving at his apartment building, I barely hesitated before pressing the buzzer. The electronic tone seemed to linger for an eternity, but eventually, Ellis' voice resonated across the intercom, crackling with confusion. "Who is it? It's Jaden. Open up." The door creaked open slowly, disclosing a room wrapped in a heavy gloom. Ellis' apartment, typically vibrant and filled with the echoes of our laughter, now felt stifled. Shadows clung to the walls, and the air was thick with an unshakable tension. "Jaden?" Ellis' voice was barely a whisper, strained as if he'd just run a marathon. He appeared in the hallway, looking disheveled, his normally lively face pale. "What are you doing here?" My chest tightened as I stepped inside, holding his gaze. "What happened?" "Maria said you were in trouble." Eli swallowed hard and glanced down the dim hallway toward his bedroom. "I've been looking into some things I shouldn't have." He hesitated, as if weighing his words. I might have crossed a line that I felt the weight of dread settle heavily in my stomach. "Crossed a line how?" "Eli, you need to tell me." His expression turned grave, and he shook his head, stepping deeper into the room. "You don't understand. It has to do with Lucas." And a loud thump rang through the apartment, and we both froze. My heart jumped as the sound of hurried footsteps echoed outside, a discordant rhythm that reverberated with the promise of impending danger. "Eli," I urged, my instincts screaming at me to get out. "We need to leave." Before I could finish, the door burst open, revealing a group of masked figures. A surge of adrenaline flooded my body as Ellis' eyes widened in horror. "Get back!" I shouted, stepping in front of him instinctively, adrenaline coursing through my veins. My heart raced, pumping fear and determination as I prepared to defend him. But the truth of the matter was, I had no idea what would happen next. In that brief exchange, all the chaos around us crystallized into an impossible clarity. The shadows of my past, the betrayal, the uncertainty, all until this very moment. I was about to fight not only for Ella's safety but for my own redemption in a world swarming with mistrust and deception. And as the figures advanced, something shifted within me, a spark igniting the possibility that perhaps this was where I could finally start to change my own story. But just as the first figure lunged forward, a cacophony erupted outside, distant but unmistakable, the wail of sirens drawing closer, about to turn this dark night into something even more unpredictable. In an instant, everything froze: time, breath, and perhaps even fate. My heart thundered loudly in my ears, drowning out the chaos as fear clashed with resolve. This was not just about surviving. It was about breaking free from the cycles of violence and mistrust that had intertwined with my identity for so long. The masked figures loomed closer, their movements deliberate, but their intentions were shadowed in darkness. Run! I shouted at Eli, but instinctively moved closer, ready to shield him. Uncertainty tore at my thoughts, but I would protect this fragile spark of hope at all costs. The terrifying reality settled in. This was it. I was not just fighting for Eli's safety, but also for mine. A battle against the repercussions of decisions made not just by me, but by all who had interwoven our lives together. Then came the sirens, blaring loud and furious, stitching an unexpected thread of urgency through the chaos. The masked figures hesitated, glancing back with an unsettling fear, and in that split second, I seized the opportunity. Grabbing Eli by the arm, I urged him toward the back door of his apartment. We need to move, now. Panic seized his features. What if they follow us? His voice trembled, but with my hand gripping his tightly, there was a steadiness that surged between us, ignited by the fear of a common enemy. I could feel the heat of his fear melting into something stronger. Underneath it, I realized that Eli had been seeking trust where betrayal had reigned. We can't think about that. We just need to get out, I replied, pushing the door open and praying that the world outside was still on our side. As we dashed through the narrow corridor, I took the lead, navigating not just the physical space, but the emotional labyrinth that tangled around us. Each step echoed with the tension and urgency of our shared fight for survival. Reaching the basement stairs, I pulled Eli down behind me, hiding in a claustrophobic corner. The muffled sounds of a chaotic world above us, the distant clash of feet, and the frantic shouts only added to the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I felt Eli's body shaking beside me, not purely from fear, but from an emerging strength that linked us in that moment of clarity. Jaden, he whispered, his voice barely audible above the growing noise. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have tried to dig deeper. I didn't think it would lead to this. Oh, Eli, I said, turning my gaze toward him. You did what you had to do. You're stronger than you realize, and it's not too late to reclaim what matters most. The walls of self-doubt that had imprisoned me once resonated within him, but hope was kindling. You must trust that even amidst chaos, light can break through. Just then, the thunderous footsteps drew closer, and I instinctively pulled Eli back against the wall, every fiber of my being screaming to protect him. Just hold on, I whispered to him, my heart racing not just from the danger looming over us, but from the realization that it was through this fight that we could forge the light we desperately sought. We were lost creatures battling shadows, but every breath was a testament to the indomitable spirit thrumming within us, an echo of resilience in the face of despair. A loud crash erupted above, and the masked figures shouted, frustration echoing in the confined space around us. I clenched Ellis' arm tighter, but instead of allowing fear to grip us, I recentered my focus. They won't take us down, I vowed quietly, feeling an unexpected pulse of confidence rebound in my core. We're not defined by our pasts. Suddenly, there was a light, a crack forming in the shadows. I cursed myself for not thinking faster. Come on, I shouted, leading Eli through a dark passage that branched off from the main basement. The air felt electric with possibility as we ducked and ran, not knowing what lay ahead, but knowing we could no longer stay in the dark. Bursting out into the street, I felt the cool rush of night air hit our faces. The alley was dimly lit, but it provided a cover from the madness behind us. Sirens echoed, merging with the sounds of the city, and for the first time, it felt like a rush of liberation, holding the potential for change. As we stepped into the lane outside, a sudden wave of determination surged between us. What do we do now? Eli asked, his breath escaping in ragged gasps. Let's find Maria. She can help, I said, glancing around for an escape route. In that moment, I realized how interconnected our lives had become. Eli, once lost, now offered a purpose tied to more than just a desperate attempt for survival. Together, we had become a mosaic of resilience, each piece reflecting a desire for redemption. The warmth of the streetlights flickered above as we turned the corner. Was it possible? And there she was, Maria, her silhouette carved against the backdrop of the community she'd fought to uplift. I could hardly believe it. Maria? I shouted, hope spilling like light through a cracked door. As her eyes softened with recognition, I rushed to her, pulling Eli with me. What's going on here? I saw the chaos. Her eyes settled on Eli, noticing the tremor in his demeanor. But before we could explain, the night erupted with lights flashing nearby and the pulse of sirens flaring again, a tangible reminder that darkness could soon catch up with us. There was no time for hesitation. Mariah's instincts kicked in, urgency replacing shock. "Follow me," she urged, weaving through the streets with a practiced grace that we barely managed to keep up with. My heart raced, not just with adrenaline, but with the promise of something monumental shifting in our lives. As we approached the community center, the hum of voices grew louder, warmer, welcoming. "We're safe here," Maria whispered confidently, and I had to fight the wave of emotions soaring through me. Could it be possible? Were we really carving our path toward hope amidst chaos? Once inside, Maria led us through the familiar halls. We rounded the corner, and the heart of the community came into view, a gathering, alive, vibrant with support and resilience. I could already see people gathering, sharing stories of struggle and survival, laughter and warmth reverberating through the air like music. That I looked down at Eli, whose wide eyes brimmed with uncertainty, but also flickered with a suspicion of hope. "I didn't expect any of this," he whispered. "Neither did I admitted, feeling a warmth settle in my heart. The harshness of our reality stood stark against the nurturing vibrancy of those around us, and it struck me how crucial it was to lean on one another through our trials. "Together," I said firmly, stepping forward. "This is where we start, Eli. We share our stories, remind one another why we fight, why we reclaim our worth." As we merged into the crowd, the warmth enveloped us, urging us to share our burdens. In that simple gathering of kindred spirits, I finally sensed a release of shame, regret, and all that had weighed on me for too long. We were not just individuals fighting our own battles. We were a community, an echo of hope reverberating in a world that often felt filled with chaos. I stood there amid the bustling voices and laughter, realizing that perhaps the greatest transformation comes not from wealth or success, but from the light we decide to kindle in the darkest corners of our lives. Turning to Eli, I smiled genuinely, feeling the connections we'd forged amid the storm. "You're not just an artist, you're a creator of stories," I told him, pausing for emphasis. "And you're about to paint a new mural of your life. One where hope doesn't merely exist in shadows, but bursts forth in brilliant colors. Together we'll reclaim our stories, and what's more, lift others with us." It wasn't just hope manifesting, it was acceptance of our journeys, the scars of past struggles becoming a foundation for our future. As laughter filled the space, the shadows dissipated, revealing a new dawn. I knew challenging moments still lurked on the horizon, but this time, I was ready to face them. We may falter, struggle, and even stumble, but we wouldn't do it alone. And here, with Eli, with Maria, I understood one incredible truth: the weight of the world could be shared, connections could heal wounds, and light was not just something to find. It was something we created together. I looked deep into Ella's hopeful gaze. A single thought burned bright. Sometimes, it's in the dark that we find the courage to let our light shine. With that, surrounded by laughter and warmth, we began to create our own stories anew, intertwined with the brilliance of resilience and community, a journey marked not by misfortune, but rather by hope, rewritten into every challenge we dared to face.